Among the things that we did that was so impressive was we had access to government officials, we had access to people working in the fields.
We also got the opportunity to talk to different ministers and their goals to this country.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to Asmara.
I come from a school of conflict analysis and resolution, which is all about trying to build peace between former combatants or former adversaries.
It's very rare for Americans to have any insight into what's happening here, and the insight that we have is usually passed through a lens which is largely distorted based on the history of conflict.
This has been one of the most important and troubling conflicts in the world, and so we've been interested in it for a long time. Many people who know the conflict well warned me, you're going to love the people, but you're going to hate the government. But what I found is that the people in the government are not so easily separated, and that the people that we've met in the government are extremely gracious and welcoming and open, and have opened the country to us in a way that has allowed us to be very critical and to ask any question that we wanted to ask, and to explore in a way that is surprising.
I'm a private sector person. My 20 years in the World Bank was preaching private sector. I'm sure when you talk to the international community here, you will be told that the Eritrean government does not support private sector. They scuttle them around. That's not true. Go back to our constitution, go back to the charter, go to the investment code, go to the macro policy document. It will show you that the private sector, in fact, is encouraged, conceptually.
I see and I witnessed hope in this country that they will actually make Eritrea better with their social justice programs and also their interest to develop their people based on their own development agenda.
The last 20 years were not normal. So we have to do a lot of things that basically to cope with the time. As an economist, I may not like a lot of the policies from a pure economic point of view, but I also am a realist. I accept what government is doing because that is the choice that is available. We will make peace here with Ethiopia. The second thing is that we are 100% sure that the living conditions in Eritrea will be much better. Also, fight for us.
Something that really resonated with me during this trip was being back home.
My background is Eritrean and I am a social worker. My interest is in social development and how the social programming is intertwined with many of these kind of ministries and departments.
The last time I came to Eritrea, I was 7 years old. Being able to go back to Mandafara and be back to my roots and being able to share that experience with the group was something that truly touched me.
On the trip to Mandafara, the whole community was there, and we got to meet the different leaders in the community and to see how despite the fact there are 9 different ethnic groups and many different religions, they're all getting along and cohabiting peacefully.
The one place that I really loved and enjoyed was Mandafara. In particular, the hospital. I was really impressed with all of the improvements and things that they've been able to do. Dr. Solomon was very gracious in showing us the NICU, and just that everybody there was fantastic. So Mandafara by far was my most favorite memory.
These are our young students.
One of the experiences that made me emotional and made me really connected with the history and with the past is our visit to Adukwala.
Hearing about the struggle firsthand from frontline fighters was, it was life-changing. So the war started at the mountains that you're seeing here in Taidabak. Quahayim. So it's Eritrean land. They also tried to make an entry at a place called Maidma, but they returned here, and the war started at the mountain that you see in front of us.
This is the command post. This is the trenches over there, on the threat. There is a big, some stones beach.
There was a very difficult war here that took place for 3 days. Very, very gruesome. It did not end. Day, night, it took place. There was no breaks for 3 days straight. There were no breaks at all. No eating, no break, no drinking, nothing. So finally, there's a village here called Adid Al, and the Ethiopian troops were able to infiltrate that village. So both areas are very, as you can see, they're very steep and mountainous, so it's difficult to get to this area. So the two mistakes that they made were coming to this area and to another area called San'afe. So they were also here to the right. And the Ethiopian troops also got very close as close to as where we're standing. You can't think that someone that has artillery or guns would be able to pass through through this area.
Standing on those hills and looking down and thinking about the lives lost, the sacrifices people have made living or striving, for their government agenda is something that has really touched me and also get me into thinking again about the importance of peace and how we can actually bridge peace into countries that are brothers.
How have Eritreans in this region, have they been able to cope with the trauma of the battles?
No, we can talk to them. These people are here, and we can talk to them.
Elder's name is Aboy Girmay Tolde. He was here at the time of the 1998-2000 war. He said, I buried my children. So he's talking about the Eritreans that martyred. He was one of the people that buried them after they lost their lives. So nobody told them to leave. It was when the battle started. They took their stuff to one area and then they came back to help the troops. So when the battle started, they'd have injured soldiers, they'd have soldiers that were martyred. This was one of the people, along with the rest of the community at that time, that helped to either help save the injured soldiers or bury the martyred soldiers.
Being an Ethiopian and being in Eritrea has been a great experience that I will always think about and remember. The most important thing is we are two countries now, but brothers and sisters who have lost 20 years and many years of conflict, through conflict. I believe we, the younger generations, are the ones who can actually bridge the gap for the lost 20 years. And I hope things are going to be a great ones because of the peace agreement that we have now. And the only solution actually to bridge that gap and to bridge the gap between the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia is peace. And now we have the peace, and that is the greatest achievement that these two countries have achieved.
How much land are we disputing here? Approximately 800 meters. And look how long we fought for this small piece of land. It's a loss.
One experience that I think I want to share is me getting to the martyr's graveyard and seeing an old woman, not so old, cry over the tomb of, it's a son or a daughter. And I moved closer and I saw the date. And it read 1981 to 2000. I sat down with her and I held her because I knew what that meant. If that child had been alive today, that child would be taking care of her. And I couldn't imagine what I was doing in 2000 in my own country and what someone else was doing for his or our country. The real sense of patriotism, the real sense of loyalty, the execution of I, myself, and the upliftment of we, that collective nature of Eritreans, stands out.
With the experience on the eve of Martyrs' Day is an experience that I will never forget. To see such large crowds, the entire city of Asmara just stopping for a moment to recognize and to acknowledge and to pay respects to all their families that played such critical roles in helping the country get to the point that it is today. I was just blown away by that experience, to see so many out there singing the national anthem, really sharing with one another, and having little kids come to me to light their candles was such a precious moment. It's certainly an experience I'll never forget. In many cities you travel to where you have, these large-scale events, it's clear that the event happened. You see the streets and there's trash, and there are little things here and there that show you that there are large crowds. But we woke up this morning and there was nothing there. It was almost as if the city didn't stop, even though we could feel it and we knew that it had.
The highlight of my trip, which really to me signifies or integrates the history, the current situation and the future, was our trip to Massawa. It was so interesting, saddened, but also enlightening to see the ruins of Massawa and to have the reminders of the really painful history. What I learned was that from great and much suffering comes great resilience. And we definitely have seen that resilience at play and during our trip by ingenious programs that have been put together with a really deep care for the land, for the people, and for development and for growth.
It's almost back 5 years ago, we started to make our preparation, especially focusing on the mining companies is coming up or developing in Eritrea.
The factories that we visited, which were super clean and with the newest equipment, and all the workers were excited to work there and were very detailed in explaining us how their factories operated.
So we try to build port expansion by ourselves within our people by bringing selected material from outside and stretch it on the ground, compact it, and make it ready for the cargo.
As a government, we have the self-sustainability policy. So food comes first, of course education at the same time. I have been working almost for 16 years. I remember in 2005 we bring so many experts. Still sometimes we bring experts in fields we don't know. And once we all get all this information, we were, for the last almost 15 years, we try to do on our own.
When I learned about the heat-resistant coral that exists in the Red Sea.
It's very unique that these coral reefs can resist the increase in temperature in which our globe is now facing.
And that there is efforts underway to isolate the strand and potentially replant them in dying reefs around the world. That gives me great hope.
I wish the Caribbean islands would have just a fraction of what you do here on a national program.
Something that I am proud of, that I'm glad that we got to share with everyone, was the power of Eritrean women.
I'm just going to give you some highlights with the women in Eritrea, especially Eritrean women and legal protection.
I think in the spirit of the culture of Me Too and the women's empowerment movement that's happening across the world, I'm glad that people got to experience the true essence of what Eritrean women mean to the whole world. And I hope that story can be told and seen as an African country, as an East African country that has such a great history in empowering women. And I hope that people can learn from Eritrean women as people develop other nations, and even developed nations can learn something as well.
And you did my heart some good, because up until this point I was wondering, where are the women? Where are the girls?
First of all, I just want to say from the start, Sophie, thank you so much for organizing this. This is incredible.
I found the lunch with the writers to be fascinating because one of the tensions here in the country, I think, is between the concept of on one side capitalism, on the other side socialism, and how it is that this country is trying to manage that discussion. The concepts of social justice with an Eritrean face is how it was presented. It's a perspective we haven't fully explored. It may be the tension that Eritrea has with the international community revolves around this concept of social justice, which is different than the one that we use in the United States and in the West. I don't think we have full answers about this, but those writers were so articulate in demonstrating their own perspective on what this means, not to supplant the government's perspective on it, but to give depth to it. I think that perspective, that idea of social justice, is a tension that our students are going to want to explore, not just now, but over many years to come.
All of us, those who were assigned to the work of culture as musicians, as poets, as writers, as playwrights, so on and so forth, were conscious of promoting Eritrean culture, Eritrean history. When we say the arts, literature, theater, music, the visual arts, and also partly cinema, particularly video cinema, particularly in forms of documentaries, and also photography. All these were documenting, transmitting the culture, promoting it, bringing it to people who were not aware of it, be it inside the country or outside, diaspora Eritreans. And also the mass media, which was led by the Eritrean radio for the masses.
We had an opportunity to go to Keren. I think one of the most delightful parts of the experience was having the opportunity to sit and have an intimate conversation with two artists who were so critical during the time of the struggle.
Khadija Adam and Tesfai Mahira, Tesfai Mahara Fahira. Fahira is a nickname. And they are two freedom fighters that were very active in the art world during the liberation struggle. Art was not art during the time the rebel forces were fighting for independence. It went hand in hand with the war. And if it was necessary, there were times that they left their roles as artists to fight on the front lines. Knowing what you're fighting for and knowing what you're fighting against can be very, very disheartening. And so they use the music to motivate them. They use the music to tell their story. And that's why the people like it so much, because it paints a picture. And it was even a resilience, it helped the fighters build resilience as well, because it was telling their story and it was taking their mind off of what they were at, the job that they were there to do. We had a goal, and that goal wasn't a job. We weren't paid to be freedom fighters. We had a goal, and that goal was independence, and it was our nationalism and our patriotism that drove our work. It wasn't finances. We were receiving no financial support, but in response to the tragedy that the enemy caused for the Eritrean people, the music was used as a bullet, a literary bullet, to fight back and to fight against what was going on during that time. She said we fought tooth and nail by ourselves. So we are a self-reliant country. We fought for our country, we won independence for our country, and now we're rebuilding our country. And so that's something that I would really like you to understand. He's saying that when we were pulling out with the forces, strategically there was a pregnant woman that was walking and that was hit by a bomb. And so she died. And he said that's the one memory that I cannot erase from my mind. And a lot of people felt it was very, very tragic at that moment. And this is a story that mimics all throughout Eritrea. There are tragedies like this that have happened in all parts of Eritrea during the struggle for independence. We can't live without a nation and we can't live without a land.
Before I came to Eritrea, I was very much disappointed in Africa. Now I'm now having some confidence in Africa. And it is all because of the hope that I see in Eritrea. And it is my prayer that peace will prevail in this country and Africa will rise again.
Water is life, as we all know. We got crops from water, we got trees from water, we got animals from water, everything is from water. So the main aim of this is if we conserve water, if we conserve the soil, everything in our land will be conserved. For example, this side, it will conserve water, the underground water. This is the whole family's duty. Father comes, mother comes, the children come, so everybody at the family have a great knowledge about this. So they contribute their whatever they can. They get up 5 a.m. So they leave all their household jobs. They just came here. They know that it's for their own use. So they had just group leaders. They come here voluntarily, without any payment, without any punishment. They just do it for their own land. That's it. We have to conserve water like this in order to have a sustained year for almost around all the year.
This has become more of a personal journey, and the reason I say that is because I get mistaken for Eritrean. I'm Somali American. I get greeted twice, one as with a group, and also the second is because they're telling me you're home. And I take that very personally, and I'm grateful to that generosity.
People have such a strong sense of self-reliance here. They just have such a high spirit about themselves and their culture. Them being able to share that with us has just been amazing.
I appreciate the Eritrean people for opening up their homes, for showing me that being in America, I can come back and you would welcome me with open arms. I am extremely proud that I get to show people that this culture does exist.
I want to thank the Eritrean people for their hospitality, but beyond their hospitality, the way they have impacted me with that vigor, that verb, to evoke that can-do spirit in my own country.
I hope that Eritrean youth, as well as people from other countries, come and experience what Eritrea is and understand and recognize what it has to offer to our international and global context. During this trip to Eritrea, I have felt very welcomed and taken care of. The people here are so inviting. I felt like I'd never had to worry about anything.
When I'm leaving here on Saturday, we'll be with a sad heart because I fell in love with the people. And it will be with a hopeful heart because so many of the wonderful things that are in progress here right now can heal the world. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to have seen this and for all the people that have made it possible. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
The students have really seen the true Eritrea. They have gone through the usual journey, starting out with reading about Eritrea beforehand, being cautious, not sure about this place, then coming and seeing the incredible welcome that we have received, the generosity of the people, the true self-reliance, a completely different vision. We've been looking at development, and we've been looking at the gap in narrative between what is said and what the realities are on the ground. It is wonderful to be eyewitnesses to what is happening in Eritrea. Thanks so much, our hosts, for everything they did to make it possible. Yakinyele.
Yakanele.
Yakanele. Yakanele.
Yakaneli. Yakaneli.
Yakanele.
Okay, Yakanele.
Is that it?
Hi, my name.